Hi, everybody. Welcome to Series 2, Episode 2 of Holistic Emails, Email and a Q&A with. Every 2 weeks, we showcase a different topic and have different expert panelists join us. By now, you should all know that it's not rehearsed, and the live audience, which is you guys that are watching us live right now, get to ask us your burning questions about the topic at hand. What I would like for you guys to do today, though, is whilst we are having our little discussion about the topic in hand, if you do have any burning questions, if you could please kindly put them in the question section. And I will definitely make sure that we get back to you and that we try and use this live session to answer your questions. If you've missed out on Series 1, you can find the whole series on YouTube or on Holistic Emails website. As everyone should know, and for those that do not know, hello, I'm Adiola, and I'm your moderator for this session of Email and More. And with me today, I have Kwabena Agyemang-Mensah of Google. I have Lisa S. Jones of iMail, Gavin Logenie of Digital, and Annette Evans of GPS. Our topic today is Black diversity in email, 1 year on. There has been a societal and cultural shift in the last year, and our panelists today will be sharing their thoughts on what it means for Black professionals moving forward. This session is not here to give all the answers, as we do not have them. But what we do want is to have an open dialogue. So please, like I said earlier, whilst we are chatting away, please enter your questions into the Q&A area, and I will make sure that one of the experts panelists gets to your question at hand. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my lovely guests. So I'm going to first, Lisa. Lisa, please say hello to everyone and let us know what you do.
Hello, everyone. I bring you greetings from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And my company, I'm the founder and chief iMail officer of a brand by the name of iMail. And we believe that every message deserves to be heard, and we insert video into your email experience to increase engagement of bringing email to life.
Amazing. And Kwabena, please tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kwabena. I wish I had founded Google, but instead I just work there. I run YouTube across technology, media, and telecoms. So if I a brand advertising on YouTube and you fall into that category, I am your best friend.
So everybody, make friends with Kwabena. And Annette, please introduce yourself to the audience today.
Okay, hi, I'm Annette Evans. I work at a company called GPS. We are a payments processor in the financial technology world. So we power the likes of Starling Bank, Revolut, Lannister, some of the big challenger banks that are coming out in the market. I actually run the HR department. However, I have a keen interest in diversity and inclusion at many levels.
Amazing. And Annette, you're a little low, but I'm sure we'll be able to fix that during the session. And last but not least, Gavin, please let us know who you are and what you do.
Hello, I'm coming to you from sunny southeast London. Not as exotic as Lisa. I'm Gavin. I'm head of strategy and insight at Digital. In case you don't know us, we are an omni-channel marketing automation platform. International 4,000 events worldwide, ranging in a number of different sectors. Into integrations with Magento, Shopify, etc. So I like nothing more than sort of helping our clients connect with their customers. And one of the best ways of connecting with your customers is by understanding the fact that you need diversity to do that, because your customers are diverse. So this is great for us today.
It's great. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I can't even keep a straight face. I'm so unprofessional. Okay, so a year has, sorry, there seems to be, I don't know if anyone can hear that, but there seems to be a huge helicopter.
We're live.
I'm in Hackney, so, a A year has now passed since the rise of BLM, so Black Lives Matter, which has actually spurred on the conversation around inclusion and diversity. What lessons or learnings, if any, can we take moving forward? And I wonder if, Kwabena, would you like to kick this one off? I'm sorry to pick on you.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so a lesson that I've learned the importance of having conversations and being fearless and making other people feel uncomfortable. So I think that's a big thing we've learned. I think a lot of the issues that we have faced on a grassroots level stem from opting not to have certain conversations because we either don't want to be our authentic selves or want to consider ourselves to be ignorant, and we are just afraid of being judged. I think all of these things can be dispelled by having open and frank conversations and creating spaces for that to happen. So that's been a key lesson for me.
Sorry, I'm not used to being on mute. Amazing, amazing. No, I share your sentiment. I do feel as though, in terms of lessons, there has to be a wider conversation about inclusion and diversity and around the treatment of people, not just staff, but beyond that. I think there definitely has been a spotlight put on how society interacts with Black people overall. And I think if we're starting to look at how, you know, workplace is shifting and shifting their attitudes and trying to put protocols in place to ensure that there is an open, friendly dynamic where the needs of its staff are taken into account, then yes, it's a step forward. Whether or not that's really being done on the outset is something to be questioned. I remember during the time of when Black Lives Matter was a movement, and you had thousands of companies posting black squares or the different colored, and it all felt very, you know, very of the moment, very celebratory of Black people and what we're about and protecting our lives and so forth. But beyond that, there hasn't been that much dialogue, and that's perhaps because things are being done behind the scenes. But it would be really great to understand, you know, from the rest of you, if you feel as though there have been any lessons or any learnings that, you know, we can take to move forward with things.
Yeah, I don't mind going, Adiola. Can you hear me, by the way? Am I loud enough? Yay, brilliant. You know, I guess I was thinking about this webinar way before Adiola, you know, asked us to be part of this, and thinking about, you know, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for Black people to really speak up and say what they feel. And I think partly where we are at the moment, it's a good space to in. A year ago, not a lot of us would have felt comfortable with being in a forum like this and putting ourselves in front of an audience and, you know, talking our truth. But it's a year on, and we're currently going through the actual trial for the murder of George Floyd. And I had to look back at my own self and think, you know, what has changed? Did the riots, did that have an effect on how individuals actually operate, for example, within the workplace or outside with their peers? And the only thing that I could actually think about is the workplace, because I know a lot of us have been going through some form of lockdown, have been working from home. So the opportunity to sort of go out into a social setting hasn't been there to have the conversation necessarily. But have we moved on? I've seen a lot of media coverage around Black people and being more inclusive and creating opportunities. Now, it happens quite a lot where you do get a frenzy. There's always a frenzy. It's the Meghan and Harry frenzy. It's the Black Lives Matter frenzy. There's always a frenzy that happens, and then over a period of time, it dies down and you don't really hear about it again. Has this happened for the movement of equality and inclusion? Potentially, it's a bit at the moment. However, I think there's a lot of employers, there's a lot of friends, there's a lot of family members who have now been made accountable for their actions. So what I've done in my organization is make quite clear to the senior leaders of that business, sorry, there's a bit of an echo, the senior leaders of that business, that you can talk, you can talk and talk and talk. We can do as much PR coverage as you want, but actually it's the action. So we need people with decision-making authority within various organizations, whether it's Google, whether it's YouTube, whether it's, you know, just the basic sort of organization that doesn't necessarily think that inclusion is what they need to be doing. We need people that are able to have diversity of thought. The moment we have diversity of thought, this will just become the norm. I don't think we're necessarily there yet. It's hard to say when we'll ever be there yet, but there are still some key issues within society that we need to start talking about. And I think the beginning is the talking bit. So this, you know, this webinar and subsequent webinars follow and different other settings is what we need.
Yeah, no, Annette, thank you. I think that's, you know, very well said. And I think, like you said, is it dying down, or it had its moment and it's kind of fizzling out? Yes. And it would be interesting to kind of know, you know, how we can actually keep this burning ember going, so it doesn't become something that was of 2020 and isn't addressed anymore, unless there's some form of review and a company needs to start having some form of accountability in terms of their head count and how diverse their head count is. It's unfortunate that this even has to be a webinar, and I won't lie, I'm very frustrated to have to keep on explaining why myself as a Black person, how I need to be, you know, just in terms of my feelings, and even simple things as workload. If workload becomes too much, all of a sudden you're a problem in that place. And so therefore you don't speak about the pressures of your workload because you're fearing that you'll have an ultimatum. In this day and age, that shouldn't be a thing that someone thinks about when it comes to their job and their job security, that if they push far in terms of what they're capable of doing, they could end up risking their role. It's a topic that frustrates me as a Black person. And the thing is, what's funny is that when I leave my house every day, I don't think about my skin color until I encounter somebody else and they remind me that I'm Black, whether or not I go into a shopping center, or if I'm asking a question at a post office and I simply just want to know the answer to something and I'm met with aggression. I think there definitely has to be a discourse, and a discourse that is ongoing, not just in the workplace, but in general overall, because the aggression that we receive at work is not isolated to just work. It permeates through all the different areas of one's life. So, you know, I'm happy that the movement happened, because it really did bring to light, or bring to surface, some of the shortcomings within people's, you know, within the industry, within people's mindsets, whether it's an unconscious bias. But yes, it's now about how do we move on from this now? How can we, now that the issue has been raised, what do we do? And I hate talking of people who have had shortcomings, but there was London, for those that may be international viewers, in London, there was a young woman in South London who lost her life, and she lost her life in a really horrible way by someone who was actually a part of the police force. And I couldn't believe the amount of gusto that went behind searching for this one person. And now laws have been put into place. Women's movements have been galvanized, and there's more enforcement to protect women and to protect, you know, women who want to walk on the street at 6 p.m. and you know, so that they don't have fear for their life. And yet we still can't seem to find a way to legislate the treatment of an entire race, and to ensure that there's fairness and equality of those minorities. But when there's a singular woman, the way that this entire place galvanizes is incredibly interesting. And it just further reiterates that in terms of hierarchy, we're still down here. in terms of importance, we're still down here. And that's why I say, to an extent, yes, I am a little bit frustrated and perhaps a little bit over having this conversation over and over again, because to be honest, it's not myself, Gavin, Annette, Kwabna, or Lisa, or anybody else who qualifies within our ethnic makeup to come up with the answers. We don't have the answers. It's for those who are in power, those that are able to incite change, to be, in some way or form, an ally, to start that rhetoric again, to make sure that they're championing and moving forward, the conversation, and finding ways to bridge the gap so that actually color doesn't become a thing. If you're ever having to benchmark a person, it's based on their performance and not based on what they look like. So I've spoken a lot. I don't know if anybody has anything to add, or I can move on to the next question.
I was going to throw out there, it's one of the points I wanted to make around this, and I think you've kind of touched on it already. It's one thing I've learned over this past year, amongst with Kwabna. He said that it's like having a voice and not being afraid to speak up. That's one thing. But another thing I've learned is that it's exhausting.
Very.
This is exhausting, and there's a number of reasons for that, and one of them is in putting this together, Adeola, I think you're looking for a couple of black faces to be on a panel. Black faces with people in a position that actually, if they speak, it's worth listening to, I guess. But when you look across the landscape, it becomes more difficult to find those people, especially in email particular. I'll speak for email in particular. It's very difficult to see those faces. So it kind of falls on a few, a select few to sort of keep the fire lit, as you sort of speaking about, and. It almost sounds like I'm not sort of thankful of the position I'm in and taking full effect of it. But it is exhausting. You've got other things that you need to do, but it feels like if you don't speak, nothing else gets done. And that's the frustration behind not having, the allies in the position to continue and help you with that exhaustion. It's you're always looked to as that person to sort of speak up. And as you said right at the beginning of this, we do not have the answers.
Yeah.
But I think, having more people in these positions, you'll start to see more of the answers coming to the forefront, and actually things starting to change. You just change a landscape. Start including more people, and then things will start going the way you want them to.
No, exactly. And we've actually had a question come in from Phil Hill, from International CRM Manager from Rover.com. Nice to have you here, Phil. So his question is, or their question is, have any of you had to help lead the conversation about diversity in the workplace? Tips on systemic things that can help increase diversity at the office. So it's like a two-part question. And I know a lot of you actually have helped lead that conversation. And do you have any tips? Is there anyone that wants to go first and answer Phil's question?
This is Lisa. So from my standpoint, being a CEO and a CEO of a brand that has teams all over the world, when the incident happened last year with everything that's going on, it was a decision to make about talking about it and having that transparency. So we have team members that are in Nepal, right near Everest, and Pakistan and Canada. And so we decided to have like a roundtable session to discuss our feelings, our thoughts around diversity, and why is this happening, which we didn't have the answers for per se, but just having that open dialogue. I think I want to go back just for a quick second to the lessons learned as well. It was really therapeutic to see the support around the world for everything that happened, because I had never personally seen that before, of everyone coming together from different parts of the world. I think it's just so important to have conversation, open transparency about that going forward. And that's what I wanted to share there.
I would agree. I think there's some aspects also of everyone in the organization becoming comfortable with becoming uncomfortable. So there's going to be difficult conversations that we're all going to have as part of this. I'm not just talking about, Black people. I'm talking about everyone in the organization needs to get comfortable with sometimes being uncomfortable. And that's a conversation about race or anti-racism. Now, we're very comfortable about talking about LGBTQ. We find areas that we are comfortable with and we stick there. And then we say, well, actually, that's a strand of diversity that I'm very comfortable talking about. And so I'll pioneer for, it might be Pride Week or month, I'll pioneer for all the other strands. But for maybe Black History Month or for talking about what's currently going on in the world, I don't feel comfortable with that. And we have to ask ourselves why.
Yeah.
It's because we don't believe in it. And there's going to be people within every organization, whether it's your direct peer, your manager, people in your team that actually don't believe in equality at this level and believe that actually it's not a big deal. And that's fine, but then we have to think about, is that the sort of environment or culture that you want to be in? But the difficult conversations is what we need to start challenging everybody on. And it starts there because, yes, this is a very uncomfortable conversation. The fact that we've got a load of people interested in this conversation on this call, it is the start. If not, I don't know how far you've got in your journey with your own respective organizations. However, it is very important to speak. But on the other side, I've sort of taken a stance that just because I'm Black and I'm in a senior position, I'm not going to guide this company on what they need to do. I'm not going to guide them. If there are experts out there, there's anti-racism experts out there that you can bring into your organization to help drive change. Now, do you want to invest in it? Probably not. It might be a financial aspect, or it just might not be at the top of your agenda. But it will be, because a lot of organizations need to start showing through their sort of ESG reporting at the end of the year, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's been a difficult 2020. We're now in 2021 and we don't know what's going to happen. What have we done? So whether you're a senior manager, whether you're responsible for a department, you're going to be held again accountable. So.
No, and you know what, Annette, thank you, because you've made a good point. It's, I guess, with what Phil was asking in terms of have we had to lead the conversation. I know that Gavin and Kwabna, you've taken initiative and done things, within the organizations or your respective places of work to create safe spaces for your fellow colleagues. But again, that shouldn't be something that you necessarily have to do, because let's face it, it's not in your job description. You don't wake up every morning thinking, how can I protect the souls and mental health of my fellow Black employees? That should be.
You know what? That's a good point. Sorry, I just felt like jump in there. You know what? It's a good point saying that it's not part of your job description. But if you think about it, how many other things are not part of your job description, but you end up doing anyway?
Yeah.
Right? And you feel no way about doing that. But then, even though, both Kwabna and I were saying that, you felt like last year was the first time you kind of step forward and actually say something and not be judged. Even though that was the case, it still felt difficult to step forward and go ahead and do something. You're right. Well, I created a safe space for people within it's just a Slack group. It was just as simple as that, a Slack group that, we could share things and people could go, you know what, I didn't realize that was an issue for you. Let's talk about this a little bit more. And I'm assumed that this group has it's sort of simmered down because, I'm not poking the coals, I'm not there to keep adding the coals on the fire to keep it going.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I said it's exhausting because yes, it's difficult and it's not part of my job description to go and do those things. But it's also not my part of my job description if I'm walking through the office and I can see that someone's down to just go and speak to them and be like, "What's up? You all right? You cool?"
Yeah,
that's not part of my job description, but I do it.
But it shouldn't. That's just the human nature in you. Anybody would would see a colleague and reach out to a colleague and see if they're okay. But when it comes to them feeling somewhat removed from the workplace because they're feeling some form of weight due to the fact that they're being discriminated against, that ultimately shouldn't even be a situation that a person finds themselves in. Like in last year when we were talking, I spoke about, in series 1, I spoke about how we as individuals or Black people, we have to come into work almost in character. We can't, you know, if I'm having a bad day, I can't just be firm and just want to get on with my work. Or if I'm naturally a firm person, I'm immediately met with the stereotype of being aggressive or blunt, abrupt, abrasive, all of these words I've heard before, when I'm none of those things. However, when you have someone who is Eastern European, let's say, and they are naturally, some are naturally quite abrupt, you are given an orientation on your first day and you're told, oh, don't worry about Maria, she's just naturally, you know, quite strong, quite full on. So it's a characteristic that is accepted with everybody else except Black people. You cannot come to work as your authentic self. And that's where I'm saying that in essence, it shouldn't be our job to make one another comfortable in the workplace. It doesn't rest on anyone's shoulders. There should be an environment of inclusion, and it comes from the top down. It comes from how the CEO speaks down. There's a company, I won't name them. My sister was interning there, and they had a cleaner in this office that worked with them for, let's say, 15 years. She was like a really loyal woman and she'd got to know everyone in the office. And, you know, when you have someone who's like the bedrock of company, so to say, they know how you like your tea and they know when this person goes to lunch and so forth and so forth. There was a bereavement in her family and she had to go back to Ghana to, you know, deal with family matters. And so when the CEO was speaking to the team and the interns were there, he said that, oh, if any of you are wondering where this certain person is, she's gone back to Umbo Bungo land to sort out any issues. Now, that type of rhetoric, in that instance, yes, okay, we know he's joking. Is it appropriate? No. But if that's the type of language that is circulated around the office, it then permeates its way down. And so that's where I'm saying the buck needs to start. Yeah, I know, Alice, right? What? I know, it happened, real stories. You know, it's from the top down. People at the top need to start enforcing that change and in the inclusive language and making a point to have not just Black people, but a variety of ethnic people within their workplace. Like you said, Gavin, it's, you know, when you're marketing to people, you want to be able to reach a wide breadth of people, because you know your customer types are not just one type of person. So in order to do that, you need to have that representation within your workplace. If from the top, their mindset is not one of inclusivity, it's very difficult for that to then trickle down.
I think in line with what you're saying about it coming from the top down, I think there are two things at play here. So you made the point of the fact that when it is maybe someone who's Eastern European or maybe someone who's from Southeast Asia, we're given tips and nuances in their behavior, and we said that, and people at the very top will make allowances for that. And then if there is a Black man or a Black woman, sometimes we're afraid of being seen as too aggressive or being the angry Black woman, or these stereotypes that kind of float around. And I think a big part of that is because we're seen as other, because we know that there's a long history of discrimination. Slavery was a thing that actually happened, and so there's this guilt that people carry, especially white people, carry around with them, right? And so there's the idea that if we're going to solve that problem, we need to come with a whole new approach. So in our team, I was talking to my director. I had a very frank, honest conversation with him. He made it clear to me, look, I don't feel comfortable talking about race. I know it's important, but I just don't feel comfortable doing it. And I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable with racism. So we're both in a position where we have to change things, right? And so we had a very healthy and frank conversation. He's like, we need more representation, but I just don't really know how to do it. And I said to him, when we had a lack of women in senior positions in the company, what did we do? And he said, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And I was like, then what are the results? Oh, fantastic, blah, blah, blah. I was like, if you were to swap women for black people, you could have the same success. Stop thinking about things about black people being this whole scary black box we don't want to touch.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what happens. You can apply the same skill sets. You can apply the same skill sets. If a black person walks into a doctor's office and they've got some kind of viral infection, they get given antibiotics, the same person, the white person. That's how it should work. This idea that we have to come up with a whole new thing to solve things for black people is what deters people from starting that journey. You have to start the journey, right? So like Annette said, it starts from the difficult conversations. It's about taking ownership. And then, you know, back to Gavin's point about having to keep maintaining it all the time. It's not our job. Racism isn't something we created. It's something we suffer from.
Yeah.
Something we suffer from. It's not something we went and created. So this idea that we have to come and solve things is ridiculous. Especially when you've got the solution, because you've shown it for so many other things. So many other, when you want to make it clear for the LGBTQ community, you know, Pride became a much more of a big deal and garnered a lot of support, right? Because it's important to allow those people to feel like they're like, I belong to a community. Yes, I belong to the LGBT community. I also belong to the community of the world, right? I should feel comfortable whether I'm on a Pride float or if I'm just walking to the printer. That should be the same. That same energy can easily be replicated for black people. We're not asking you to come up with a whole new plan, guys. You show success for women. You show success for LGBTQ community. You show success in so many ways. Going out of your way to make people feel included starts with talking to them. It starts by understanding what they need and how they want to be spoken to. And then it's about making them feel empowered so that they can speak to other people who are at them and say, you know what, this workspace is a safe place for people like us. And that's where it grows. It's not rocket science, in my opinion. I don't think so.
You know, we said that we didn't have the answers.
But he just had it.
I think we're done. I think we're done.
Yeah, like we can end now. Because I was like, it's like I'm just speaking to the UK Barack Obama. Like, because it's literally, it's almost like, yeah, that is all that needs to be done, where there is literally no massive request or demand. And like you said, these kind of minority groups have been tackled previously and with much success. So yeah, it's replicate that recipe. It's like banana bread with a bit of cinnamon, you know, just add a little bit of spice and flavor to it. So Kwabena, I hope someone was watching and is gonna, you know, write this out as a quote so it can be plastered on LinkedIn for top CEOs to read. But let's jump into another question, actually, because I think there's much that all of you can speak about on this. In your respective industries, do you feel there has been much progress with addressing the actual issue at hand? And I asked this question because I know that Lisa, not to pick on you, but you've mentioned, you know, capital investment within Black businesses in the US. So those initiatives that we don't really see much of here, but it seems as though in the US they're paving the way. And also, you know, with global processing, there have been initiatives taken there, and also, you know, initiatives within Google. So there are examples of things out there that are happening, whether they're big or small, but there are things that are happening. So
definitely things that are happening. And here in the United States, as mentioned, from opportunities, be it from major corporations like Apple, UPS, McDonald's, Ford Motor Company, Uber, there are increased initiatives, which are greatly appreciated because it levels the playing field to have access. All we ask for is the access to show our talents and our contributions. And so we've seen here additional grant support, additional opportunities to introduce products and services. Prior to me becoming a full-time CEO, my background was in diversity of looking for suppliers, so supplier diversity. And one of the key elements is, like you mentioned, of bringing diverse thoughts to the table, but not only diverse thoughts, of course, but cultures and experiences to create this holistic approach to any problem or to any challenge and a value proposition. So I definitely think the progress continues in motion. And we continue to look forward to greater improvements. I will say we do appreciate the fact that there is acknowledgement and that there are initiatives that are measured KPIs for performance to make sure that it's not just the talk, but it's also the action that supports the initiative.
Amazing. Because I remember on our pre-call, you were saying that, who was it? There were investment banks that were supporting Black businesses? And I even noticed that Google, now when you search for Black businesses online, obviously online, it highlights that this business is Black owned. So it helps searching for Black businesses and supporting Black businesses so much more easier. And just a simple change like that, bringing those businesses to the forefront, is a small thing, but makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference, as you mentioned, for the visibility and the support. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I don't know, Annette.
Yeah, no. I was going to say that I saw that on Google and I thought that was really good. There's something slightly a bit deeper, and I'll go into it. So it's about the supply chain. Now, if you go into a lot of private organizations, the problem is that although, yes, you can highlight that this is a Black-owned business, a lot of the supply chains within organizations are through their own personal networks. So an example is my mate, runs a apprenticeship program, for example, and we're trying to bring one into the organization. I'll go to my mate who may be a white male, for example. Now, he's got that contract not because we've tendered and we've gone out there and they're the best organization for the contract. It's because I've been able to use my privilege to
bring in
bring in another privileged person into the loop. That is a massive part of the problem. So Black businesses never actually get a look in. They actually never know when there's an opportunity, because that opportunity never goes out there into the forefront. So we don't get the opportunity to come and actually speak and say, hey, I'm Lisa Jones, I've got this amazing company. Sometimes you don't get in there because those supply chains have already been filled.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about, the opportunity that Black people can have, it's not just about, bring them into an organization and we're looking for, 5 Black people to come into, the sales department of this organization. Because also our inherent response to that is, let's think about like early careers. Let's get an apprentice in. Let's get them, they can come in through a junior route. We looked at that in our organization, and I put my foot down and said, listen, stop right there, because when they get into the organization, what is the opportunity for them once they get their foot in the door? Will they always be a junior? Will you ever give them an opportunity? Will they ever see daylight again, or will you just keep them in the basement? That's exactly what it is. Will you keep them in the basement? It's like, you're hiding this old person in the basement. They come out now and again when you want to show that you're Black people in the business. So I just I stand back from that sometimes. I say, listen, it's always great to have different ways in order to get into sort of an organization. But let's think a bit wider. As I said, the supply chain, if all of your suppliers are networks through your own personal network, the likelihood is they are likely to be somebody like you. And we do it. It's unconscious bias. We all have it in us. The same way, if we did it too, if I had a business, actually, I'm looking for someone who does videos and email, I'll go to Lisa because I know Lisa. She's in my network. But that's what's happening. And that's why Black small-owned businesses they're struggling to get themselves out there, because it's just like the doors are closed.
That's such a fantastic point, and it actually goes beyond, like you said, it goes beyond just the employment, but it looks at all facets. I think that this is where discussions like this are useful, because there could be someone on the call right now that is thinking, okay, I need to kind of start having a wider thinking when it comes to hiring. But God darn it, gee willikers, I also have a supply chain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, something else too is that, you know, greatness can be born from anywhere geographically. And when it's always about also that visibility of showing up and representing your business or your talents. And I think that's just so important. So for example, in my case, talking about diversity and also being a woman, and the fact that I'm from Alabama, so the state of Alabama here in the United States, right? So people say, wow, Lisa, you're from Alabama. Yes. Oh, so you worked at NASA? Yes, I did. So, you know, all these different things. And so you're a CEO of a company. Absolutely. And I think it's important to see that, and that no matter where you are in the journey, you just have to stay the course and keep moving forward with it and do your best. Always represent the excellence, right? That we all represent in our career choices and our journeys. And the time will come for that visibility, but just being prepared for the opportunity is critical, regardless of where you're from.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very important message. Okay, I think we've got, does anybody have anything else? I don't think so, because I've seen lots of red microphones. So I'm gonna move over. Right, so next question. And for those that are watching, if you do have any questions, as you know, please feel free to ask them. Right, so, okay, I feel like, all right, let me ask this one. Do you feel, no, what can be done to progress things forward? So I kind of want to build upon, and Annette, I know you just finished talking, so you don't have to right now, but I want to build up what you said in a previous call about grassroots training and educating, you know, Black men and women on how to seize certain opportunities and how to put themselves forward, and taking advantage of the moment that we're in right now, so that, you know, if someone sees an application with a name that isn't a typical English European name, you know, it's not necessarily going to be overlooked, because there is that momentum. There is that momentum there, and people are a bit more aware, you know, so that acknowledgement is present. So, you know, does anybody have any, not the answers, but what do we feel could be done to move things forward? If I was to say one thing, it would actually be to every day wake up and remove those biases from your day to day. Remove them. When you're looking at applications, don't go straight for stereotyping. If you see a particular name, go straight to LinkedIn and try to search them and make an assumption of who they are based on what you've seen from a small thumbnail. You know, be open. If the skill sets are there presented in front of you, take them on that. Use that as face value to move forward, because then you'll be the change. I think when you hire someone based on their merits and they just so happen to be from a minority background, and I hate the fact that I'm saying this, but it almost kind of just lets other departments know, I hate saying this, that there is talent outside of what they're used to seeing. There's talent. And I think, Lisa, you did, the CEO of Belvedere, he, I can't remember his name, but he said something when I watched his interview. What's his name, Lisa?
Rodney Williams, the CEO of Belvedere Vodka.
Everybody Google Rodney Williams, yes, and try and find his interview, because he said something that I think is important. Because he basically, and because I felt it in my spirit, he basically said that when a Black person is given an opportunity, I'm paraphrasing just as a disclaimer, but essentially when a Black person is given an opportunity within any establishment, there needs to be room for them to fail. And not necessarily to fail, but to make a mistake.
Or to stumble.
Or to stumble. You know, we're always having to come in and work on a form of excellence. We have to be the pole bearers or the flag bearers for all of the other Black people that will come after us. There is no room for error. There is no room for mistake. There is no room for complaints. As soon as there is an error, all of a sudden your weight in gold is being measured, whereas your counterparts are able to make countless errors and learn from those errors to build on their skill sets. So I think that's, something to be discussed and spoken about, and that mindset to kind of really start to seep in, that if you hire someone that actually doesn't look like you, please don't condemn them if made a mistake. Give them the room to grow from that mistake. Don't then let next applicant suffer because you feel as though you've taken a chance on that one, and that one just didn't cut the mustard, and now all of a sudden no more, it's gone back to this homogenous view. That's my one thing. Go ahead, Quabs, jump in.
I don't want to speak for everyone on this call, the speakers on this call, but when you are raised Black, quite often you're told you have to be twice as good to get half as much. And it's funny because when people talk about, when I speak to like my white friends and they talk about the talk, it's usually just about sex, right? That's what the parents are talking about. But when you are Black, the talk could be about sex. It could be about how you carry yourself as a Black person in public spaces. It can be about how you have to work harder than everyone else to get half as much as like all these things come in. So it just shows you how much weight they bring to the table to begin with, right? So when you are hiring these people, the idea just says like giving them space to fail or to fumble is really important, not only because they are who they are, but because the background they've come from means that they more often than not have had to jump bigger hurdles than you can probably imagine to get to where they are right there. And they then become the story for those who come after them, which is also hard. And then it becomes hard to make sure that your success is potentially the rule and not the exception, right? So that's also a big thing. And these things are coming through people's head all the time. So when you think about making systemic change, it's about making sure that when you are hiring, you have a diverse pipeline, right? So if you want to go out there and hire whoever, if you decided to make it a rule where every time you go out in your hiring position, you say, I want at least 2 Black people in there, or I want at least 2 Black women, or whatever. You can make those demands. Like my director, she has put together a specialist group of 10 leads, right? And of those 10 leads, there is one woman who's Argentinian Italian. There's one woman who's from Trinidad. There's another woman who is half Polynesian, half Brazilian. There's me, Ghanaian. There are like 3 white guys 2 from the north of England, 1 from like Bournemouth in the south. Like there's a mix because she intentionally went out and found those people. The idea that these people do not exist, or that it's really hard to find X, Y, Z, like it's a fallacy. LinkedIn means that you can find anyone at any time. So if you really want to make systemic change, be very intentional about not only who you hire, but how you hire. Like, I've seen so many things online. I've seen a really strong community of Black women who code. Didn't know that was a thing. But there are thousands. You want to find a coder? Dip into that. There's a massive community of Black people in the creative space, right? These are communities that exist. If you wanted to, you could go directly to them and say, I'm trying to hire blah, blah. Send me your best representatives. They will happily give them over because we all want to win. We all want to win. We want to win ourselves. We want those around us to win. And there's enough space at the table if you let us in. So for me, before it gets to a stage where people have to start breaking the doors down, I think an invitation to the party will be very well received and done by going through and doing your research, making sure you are going to these spaces and you're inviting these people to the table.
Kwabena for mayor. Oh my goodness. And do you know what, Kwabs? I feel like I wish we didn't have 5 minutes left because I would love to have ended it on that because it was just to the point. I think it kind of echoes what you said previously. It's not hard. We're there and we exist, and there are means to find us. We're all on LinkedIn. We're all professionals. If you need something, it's about having that intention. Like you said, if you intentionally go in looking to be diverse, you are going to stumble across so much. I looked for a tailor to make me an African traditional dress, and I found not only black tailors in London, but I found so many white ones as well that specialize in Nigerian clothing. And I was, you know, surprised. And it just goes to show if you put your efforts into searching, you will find, and it doesn't take long because Google does all the hard work for you. I mean, so yeah, I think it's fantastic. Does anybody else have anything to add before we close up? I'm seeing lots of red.
Oh. Well, I did want to just talk about, okay, so race is absolutely one thing, a massive thing, but we also forget about people from sort of socio-economic backgrounds where, you know, you've been brought up in Hackney, as Adiola said, I'm a Hackney girl too, and those sort of areas. And, you know, a lot of people that go for interviews or they go into a business and sometimes they just don't know what the etiquette of being interviewed should actually come across like. And you should be yourself, absolutely. But let's not forget that there are some people that have had the privilege of going to like private schools, being taught Latin, being taught all of these things. You know, they're from a whole different environment. And I'm not saying people we don't come across as being, you know, professional in the workplace. Absolutely, we do. But there is a big difference about how we've all been brought up, and none of us can affect our past, our environments.
Yeah.
You know, our parents who have come here from different countries, none of us have the ability to affect that, nor do white people. White people, black people, Asian people, everyone. We don't have any sort of power around how that has come about. But what we do is the power to see everybody as individuals and listen to their experience. So if you are looking for somebody to join your organization, it should be about their experience and if they are the best person for the job. The person's specification, job description doesn't say, okay, this person has to be a white person. It says this person needs to know how to code. They need to know HTML. They need to, you know, be proficient in C#, whatever it may be. That's what we're looking for. So use some of the resources that you've already got around you and look past this, even though this looks.
That's it. That's it. Look past the melanin, look past it and look at the attribute of the person, look at their skill sets, look at what they're bringing to the table. The rest is irrelevant. So yeah, I think, thank you, Annette. That's like a fantastic point. And I know that, you know, like I said in the beginning, we don't have the answers. We're not going to be able to give you the silver bullet, although Kwabena probably on 2 occasions has definitely pointed people in the right direction. I think we're all nodding like, yeah. So I do really hope that for those of you that were watching, you found it useful or at least insightful, and perhaps the conversation has sparked something else within you or sparked another conversation to be had with somebody else. You know, and that's all it takes, and that's where it's from. It just starts from one person having a chat, and the rest becomes history. So, you know, I actually just want to say thank you to everyone because we are now at the end of our session. And it's just gone by so quickly. As always, please, we'd love your feedback in the chat, you know, if you found this discussion helpful. And I want to thank everybody, all of those of you that have attended with us live today, and also everyone that is going to be watching on demand. Thank you. And a massive thank you to our wonderful panelists today, you know, to Kwabena, Annette, Lisa, and Gavin. Thank you so for your valuable insights and for sharing with us today. I hope again to see you soon, and look out for more from Holistic Email Marketing. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.